Hey guys, so we have another project here from J&D Projects, and today we are going to do the third part of the Bellows restoration project. If y'all haven't seen part 1 and part 2, I highly recommend that you do. It goes into much more detail on where this comes from and the history of it. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be working specifically on this top paddle and flapper. We're going to take this all apart and we're going to show you how we're going to fix the crack and how we're going to deal with all this stuff over here. So, let's get started.
Okay, going ahead. What are you doing first?
Well,
let's go.
Turn off the camera. Okay guys, so the first thing we're going to start with is we're going to get this hinge off, and we're going to start on this side and take these 3 screws out. Okay, so we have got that done. So now we're going to move to this part of the hinge. Reg.
Do you want to actually move it over to our table first? Because it's free.
That'd be easier.
Yeah, let's do that.
Alright.
Okay.
So we're gonna move this over to our table real quick. Get the table.
Get it on there a little bit. Square. Okay. All right, now.
So,
what do you want to do next?
we're going to get that Phillips head screw out of the strap part.
Now, just a couple of words here while we're, this hinge has been painted. This is a repurposed hinge, very clearly. These carriage bolts here, we're going to have to get those off in a minute. You can see that they're galvanized. Back when this thing was built, back in the 1850s, they would not have had this kind of access to this kind of material. So, we are trying to be practical but as accurate as possible, and so we're probably going to have a little episode on how you can take modern bolts and modern nuts and things like that and give them the appearance of being vintage. But that'll be for another video, but just be in mind that that'll be coming up here pretty soon.
Okay, so on the bottom.
We need to flip this thing over.
Probably.
Hey, why don't you get those posts out real quick?
Okay, let me get a pair of pliers.
Yeah, grab a pair of pliers. We'll be back in just a second.
Okay, guys. So while y'all were gone, we tried to get these posts out. It had a filter on here, and we tried to unscrew them, and they snapped. We figured out that he had put wood glue or some sort of glue down in there, and there's no way of getting those out. So what we're gonna have to do is just break them off and then file them down flat. We don't want to drill because that's way too much of a risk for this wood. So
yeah, we would never get that drilled out properly.
No, it goes sideways.
Go sideways, yeah.
No, so
okay.
We're gonna have to file it down.
Well, let's get these off. Other way. That tightens, yeah. There you go. That's all thread.
This one's actually coming out, I think.
Hang on, let me get over here. Is that one coming out?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Surprising.
That one's actually coming out.
Yeah. Now that I see it, there's no like glue stains over here like there is on the other side.
Yeah, there's definitely glue stains here. And I don't know what kind of glue that would have been used, whether it was an epoxy or some kind of like JB Weld or something. Is that one coming out?
It's turning out, yes, but I don't think I'm making very much progress anymore. It's definitely in there pretty tight.
Doesn't look like you're coming up any. You coming up?
Yeah, I am.
Great.
I think the threads in the wood are, I don't know, like that.
That's just all thread, isn't it?
It's just all thread. We thought it was like some of those like reverse threaded bolts, you know, on both sides. They're threaded on both sides.
Yeah, with wood screw on one side, machine bolt
Yeah.
on the other. Yeah. It's just all thread though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's a flattened out piece of all thread. He somehow must have taken like an angular grinder or something, scaled that.
Oh, he did to make it kind of okay. So this, by scowling it like that, the way this was done, this restoration, this earlier restoration, was apparently done. Assuming it was done then, I don't know. We don't have any history on that. But at any rate, whoever put this piece of all thread in, cut that on an angle, kind of made a scarf kind of cut, and what that does is that when you go into that hole, it acts as a drill bit. And sort of cuts a set of threads. I wonder if it'll be the same on that one.
I bet it will if it was the same person that put it in. Yep, it is.
Okay, too bad we couldn't get these out.
Yeah, it's a real shame, but we'll just put some wood filler in there, make some wood filler.
Yeah, we'll make some wood filler out of when we sand this a little bit, because we're going to sand this, do a light sand before we do a refinish.
Yeah, but you can definitely see where he like used his finger and wiped off the glue.
Yeah, you can definitely see the glue stains over
but
here.
There's no glue
There's
stain.
really no glue stains over here. I mean, there's a little bit right there, but not much, and then it doesn't look like there's hardly anything here. Yeah, so these were glued in for probably because they didn't fit well, and they were loose, and so took some epoxy or whatever and put down in there to anchor them. Okay, next thing we're going to do is get rid of this piece of leather here. This was used as the hinge for this flap, and this isn't historical. This part we can make sure that we do right. I'm going to show you what the historical flap would look like and hinge. It was made with a piece of round stock. Looks like maybe 16th inch or maybe 8th inch at the most round stock. And if I can, John, can you help me lift this up? We can show you what it would look like on the other side of the hinge. So you can see it's a very simple thing. It's just a piece of, well, I don't know if you can see this or not. Here, let's lift this on up a little bit here. Can you hold it?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's the piece of metal right there. There's the piece, and it goes up through those holes, and it comes out here, and then it's just simply bent over. Makes a perfect hinge for this kind of application. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. So do you want to do the honors, John, and cut that off?
I get a box cutter, side cutters, you think?
whichever one you want to use. Either one would be good. I'm following you.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Get our mess in the background.
Okay. Now, let's lift this up. And
That
you
is not a very old piece of leather. It's pretty new.
Yeah. There we go. Down. Okay. And this is the flapper. Wow. So square nails, square tacks were used.
Yeah, I'd assume.
Yeah. Pull that on out. Yep. So there's that flapper. We're going to put it to the side.
You can also tell that this is modern leather because there's a modern die right there.
Yes. Yeah, very, very cool. You know, I want to point out something. So this was like this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the bottom part of the bellows, right? This is the part you can see when you stand under it, when it's mounted in its place. And so this flapper, when it goes in on the bottom side here, I can't really get it back in there now, but it goes in there, okay? Now, this is what would be seen from the bottom. I just want to show you the attention to detail that these guys used back in the day, because this is the inside of the flapper, the part that's not seen. I want you to see that they took the time to bevel this. There is absolutely no mechanical reason why you would want to bevel on that side, other than it's just attention to detail.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different bevels.
Yeah, and then they put these stabilizer bars in right here with these square head tacks, and they beveled those as well. Again, this would be on the inside. It's not something that would have to be beveled like this, but yet they took the time to do that. And I just think that's astounding. We just walk past that these days. But you have to understand that in 1850, this is not a trivial task. This is going to be done with hand saws, with pull saws, maybe with block planes, at least on the going with the grain, going across the grain, not so much. But at any rate,
you can see a saw or something.
Yeah, they probably used a saw for here to go across the grain like that. You can plane with the grain. But you know, it's a very minor point, but I think it's a major point. It's not a minor point, it's a major point, because this shows just craftsmanship, attention to detail, taking time to do your very, very best. And again, with this opening, here's another piece that doesn't have. There is no reason why this has to be beveled. This opening here. This is what's seen from below. But they took the time to actually make this bevel here. Why? Because it looks more finished, it just looks better. I would use the word professional, but I don't think that's the correct word. It's attention to detail. It's being, you know, showing pride in your work. And that's the kind of stuff that you see when you start getting into these really old pieces that were made 150, 200 years ago. Much different level of craftsmanship than what we have today. All right, we'll be back in just a minute when we get to our next step. Okay guys, we're back. We've got this thing flipped over now on the other side. And before we get going here, we just want to show you a couple of things. So you can see the crack. You see how the crack is centered right on that rivet. We're going to have to take these rivets out. I didn't want to, but we're going to have to. But we'll just put new rivets. Well, we'll re-rivet it with. We'll forge rivet them. Use the forge to rivet them back in. But a couple of things. Modern weather stripping here to act as kind of a seal, which I really don't think is needed. But what we're going to do is we're going to take all that out, and we're going to at least put leather back in here. This also This is a modern trim, modern finishing nails that have gone into this piece right here. We're going to take this off as well and redo that. Not sure how we're going to do that, but we're going to redo that in some fashion. Again, this part is not seen, but you know what? One of these days somebody's going to maybe refinish this again, and when they do, I would like for them to see that we tried our best to stay as period as possible. Maybe it doesn't make any difference, but it makes a difference to us. Now, you notice John pointed out, John's the one that pointed out this that this crack, is centered right here, and this is where all the stress is, guys, on this bottom paddle, because this is the one that actually moves up and down.
And you can see as he
and so
did
notice that whenever, you see how it,
all the stress is these 2 points.
Yep.
And there is no sort of distributor or anything on here.
There was a force distributor on this thing that's been taken off. Look at the channel that's been cut here. And if you look really close, you can see these were, looks like nails that were used. I'm going to come over here because you can actually see one. This one, you can see the corroded nail is still in the hole. I think you can get a sense of that. Okay, so there was a piece of flat bar that went all the way across here. That is what added the stability to distribute the force of the pulling of that paddle. It distributed the force all the way across this piece of wood. With that missing, all the force is centered right here on the center of this paddle. That's why this paddle broke.
Which is also a weak part in trees. The pith, which is this area right here, is also a very weak part in trees that is prone to cracking.
Well, this isn't pith, man, right here. This was a monster tree that they took this out of.
It must have been.
Yeah, this is a monster tree. You can see that's not really. It's getting close. It's at the edge.
It's at the edge.
It's at the edge of the pith, right? Any rate, we're going to reinstall this flat bar here. So that's going to go back in. Now, how we're going to fasten it, we'll have to think about that. But that's going to go back in once we get this thing repaired. So, John, what are you getting ready to do now?
I'm about to take off these modern square bolts. At least he put square bolts on there.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
It's galvanized, but at least he put square bolts on there.
Yeah.
Or square nuts, I guess I should say.
Okay. Now let's see if we can get that hinge off. Let me have those. I'll set them over here.
Right. I think there's some sort of sap or something else on there, sticky.
What you may be able to do is get. We're going to be right back. We have to get a couple of tools. Hang on.
On the other side.
Okay, so while I was gone to get a mallet, John just pushed those bolts right out with his hand. So, no harm, no foul.
Can you take the hinge?
I'll take the board. How's that?
Okay, let it go.
Good. Okay. All right, so that's all out. Let's look at this hinge a little more closely.
You can do it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably retain this hinge just simply because it's, I don't know, we'll see. I have some other hinges that we might end up using. We'll just have to think about that. But for right now, this is going to go over in the pile, and we'll make the decision later on what to do. We got a lot of work before we need that hinge back, so we'll be back in just a second. So John is attempting to pry these guards up.
Can you hold the board over there?
Yeah, got it.
You might need a little bit of a mallet. A little bit of mallet.
Tell you what I do, use this side. Take that in and run it in. Let me come around on the back side of you so we can. And go right underneath the nail. That'll help. Yeah, right underneath that nail. Is it popping up?
Yep, I just did.
Okay. Go ahead and pop that thing out of there. I think you still need your angle there for a little bit of leverage.
Yeah. Just don't want to back up the wood any.
No.
No, I'm gonna get the nail over here.
Yeah, if you'll just, yeah. Okay. You know this was not there to begin with.
Yeah,
I'm
you
just
can.
not sure I see the value in that, but we'll check that out. We'll make sure.
I think since the leather was there, it was
Too woogity. Yeah, I think you're right. Okay. Now try to see how you can scrape that up. Yeah, you're going to have to scrape it. It's going to be too.
That's kind of satisfying.
Yeah, we'll cut a piece of leather to put back there.
Mm-hmm.
Now they would have used maybe some pine tar pitch to glue with. You know, we will probably use modern adhesives. You know, like I said, there's nothing wrong with that when you have to go that direction. Just because it is what it is. It's kind of hard to come by some of the actual materials that would have been used, and so we have to sometimes improvise. But you can tell that it was glued. There was something glued there, and I bet you there was a piece of leather there.
You can see how wide it was too.
Yeah. And you know, you can keep that leather oiled.
Yeah.
You know, just doing yearly maintenance on it. You know, you can just pop that little valve up and just run your hand around it.
I mean, you have to oil the outside leather bladder all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't have to do it with that naga hide, but you shouldn't use naga hide for this anyways, but maybe some people do.
I mean, obviously, it's more cost effective to use the fake leather than the real leather, but we're going to go on ahead and make the investment in the real leather. Okay, there we go. Good job. So we have just a couple more things we're going to do to get this done. We're going to have to get these rivets out. Now that's going to be a little bit of a trick. So we're going to flip this thing back over and be back with you in just a minute. Okay, so we've moved to the floor now because we need something that's really stable and sturdy to do, because we got a nail or hammer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get these rivets out, we're going to hand punch a hole in the center here, and then we're going to take the drill That metal has not seen the light of day
And forever.
in 170 years.
If it's a completely original.
Well, this is wrought iron, so I'm pretty sure this is an original. I'm doing this slowly because I don't want to get onto the wrought iron itself.
I'm thinking you can just like pop them flakes.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I can now. I may have to have a smaller punch, but yeah, that's pushing it out. I need a smaller punch. So we'll be back in just a second with a smaller punch. Now, we'll worry about pulling that out later. We'll just have to ease them out with a jimmy bar or something. So that's how we're going to take all these out. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more to go. We're going to go on ahead and just do that off camera. We'll be back in just a minute with it finished up. Okay, so we got all of the rivets out. John and I did about half and half. And so you can see this piece comes right off, and there's a lot of really cool things to look at here. One of the things is you can see some rough file marks right here. I don't know if you can see those on the video or not. You can also see, if you look very closely right here at this hole, these holes were punched, they weren't drilled. You can see how there's a little tiny bit of flare on each side here, and that was where the punch was driving through, and it was pushing material out to the side as it was going through. So these holes were punched, they were not drilled, which again is in keeping with what we think to be an original piece on the or at least a semi-original piece. John's kind of under the impression that right here there may have been a different mechanism here to begin with, but it failed. And then
you can see there's a very old breakout. That's not a new breakout.
Yeah, that's a very
old breakout.
And then at some point then another blacksmith, or the same one maybe, or I don't know who it would have been, but put this on there instead. And so that, be that as it may, this is a piece of wrought iron, as are the 7 rivets that came out of here. Those are also wrought iron. And just to show you a couple of interesting things, I think it's this one right here. Let me see. Yeah. I don't know. It's probably not going to show up very well. Can you see the shiny right there? See that shiny? That's original metal. It was kind of sealed in the wood and did not corrode. And so, I mean, I just think that's kind of cool that we're actually seeing, you know, the original metal that the craftsman that made this thing would have seen when he was making these rivets. These are handmade rivets. You can tell by looking at this side of the bottom side of this rivet. You see how it's not symmetrical. It has been put probably in a large in a bolster or a nail header or something like that to make this first rivet swell. And then on the other side that went through, it was longer, and then it looks like they cold molded the rivet on the other side. So we're going to hold on to these because they are original to the piece. Don't know what we're going to do with them. We'll let our head interpreter decide how that's going to happen, but we will retain them. So last thing we're going to do is get this thing glued back together.
Before we do that, as you can see, the pieces are completely split from each other. We thought there might be a little material here, up here at the top, but it's completely split from each other.
Yeah, the absence of that force distribution bar on the other side was a critical omission. I don't think this piece would have split had that been there. But it did, and we're going to fix it, and we're going to move forward. So we will be back in a minute when we have our gluing gear together and clamping gear.
Okay guys, so we wanted to show you something that I found actually, as we got the left side of the bellows unriveted or whatever, or the rivets taken out of the bar here. It came apart. I looked right there, and there was a big clump of black fine hair, and we don't really know where it came from. We don't really know if we think it's a human hair. We don't really know 100%, but we thought that was an interesting find. Yeah, now we can get our gluing camping gear.
Now we can do our gluing. Okay guys, we're gonna have to clean up this surface here on both sides really well before we even attempt to glue this. So we're probably not going to be gluing today. We're just going to get this cleaned up, because I'm taking a brass brush here, and I'm just doing this is the first pass now. Now John, suck that off, see what that looks like. Can you see the difference? Okay, so you can very clearly see the difference. So we're going to have to really clean this up.
I'm going to turn the camera off.
Okay.
Okay guys, so we just got done with this one. What we did is we got a brass brush, wetted it down, scrubbed it, and then got a wet microfiber towel and rubbed it off. And that's the before, that's the after. I think it worked pretty well. We're going to do the exact same thing to this, and at some point to that, and get everything clean, let it dry overnight, and then I'll go. So. Okay guys, so I hope y'all liked this episode 3 of the Bellows Restoration Project. We're going, in the next video, we're going to be gluing it, and now we're going to be working on the other paddles in that nozzle. So we're going to see you guys then. Please consider subscribing. If you later on don't like what you see, what we're doing, you can always unsubscribe. It's completely free, whatever you decide. Hit the like button for us, and we'll see you next time.
Adios.